Children are the backbone of almost every society now. They are seen as the center of families and the glue that holds them all together. But, looking back into societies and societal norms of the past, children have been disregarded and thrown to the side with little to no value at all. Specifically looking at the 1970s compared to our most recent decade, there has been a change in the way people view children, and it is neither improving or getting worse. It is just changing. Here at Penn State, children are valued very highly, especially due to the Pan-Hellenic Dance Marathon held every year in February, dubbed Thon. Thon is a student-run philanthropy put on in search of a cure for childhood cancer. Children are valued and will continue to have an increase in worth due to the emphasis on children in our society. Societal views on children have been changing ever since the 1700s. Specifically looking at the change from the 1970s to modern days have been drastic, especially with the integration of modern technology, medicines and foods, parenting style, and health concerns such as getting hurt. Some changes are for the good of the society, but others are for the worse. With medical advancements, while they are extraordinary and help significantly to further our society as a whole, there are setbacks to children in which they are viewed as fragile. This is drastically different from the way of the 70s. Children were once viewed in a way that they were free to be children with no constraints that the modern world has put on them. In more recent years, children have been accustomed to being labeled as something for just being a kid. Attention deficit disorder, ADD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and hyperactivity are all common words that you hear in modern day society to label children. These words are used to label them for just being themselves, which is considered normal for their age. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, ADHD diagnoses throughout the years have been on a steady incline that does not seem like it's slowing down or stopping. Medications such as Adderall are being used to help treat these. Medicaid money is being wasted on unnecessary medication of young children, about $500 billion to be exact. While not much has changed with children's behaviors since 1970, the approach of parenting has changed, and they act as if they almost want to bubble wrap their children and protect them at all cost. Helicopter parents. These parents feel as though that they have to compare to every other child and parent, which is not the case. But because of social media pressures, it makes people feel as though they need to be the absolute best version of themselves at all times. They do not want their children to reap the consequences of anything. While there have been many advances in medicine in the past 50 years or so, there is virtually a drug or vaccine for every human symptom that existed, except for helicopter parents. Nowadays, by the time children are 6 years of age, they've received over 36 vaccines compared to that of about a dozen administered to the children for every 7 different diseases. There has been a 414% increase in vaccines given to children, which poses the question if we are over-vaccinating children in the United States. With modern agriculture, there was a herbicide, glyphosate, which was introduced in 1974, and this was just the beginning of producers messing with food. Things such as genetically modified food, sugar-free, fat-free, gluten-free, dairy-free foods, and etc. were quickly introduced soon after the introduction of glyphosate. Up until the 70s, there was a high amount of organic farms with little to no pesticide use, but advances in modern food technology added things such as artificial sweeteners, which came at the expense of our health. Processed foods and things like that is where the population has been headed towards. Childhood obesity has become a more prevalent issue in the past few decades because of this enhanced food epidemic that has plagued the United States of America. Things such as childhood obesity has been on the rise. With the introduction of modern technology, things like cell phones and game boxes make things like playing outside and face-to-face contact seem like an abnormality. Compared to the 70s, where there was no internet, computers, phones, or video games, which meant that entertainment came from outside or others. It seems as though we are living in a Jetson-like society. What ifs weren't questioned in the 70s, even though there was still child molesters, kidnappings, and murderers. In the modern age, parents live in a world of what if, and make their children live in a world with them that is protected from a life that could have anything harmful in it. Basically, these parents would rather keep their kids inside and let them fry their brains with electronics, video game boxes, the computer, than go and experience the real world for themselves. Rather than face-to-face peer contact, people would rather be behind a screen. To help implement going outside and to participate in physical activities, television stations much like Nickelodeon implemented a worldwide day of play where they did not broadcast any shows in an effort to get children to shut off the television, get moving, go outside, and interact with their peers. This event had support from people such as Michelle Obama, who tried to implement things such as healthy eating along with this get outside and play. They tried to do this with children because they're young and impressionable. But social media has become an addiction, and Worldwide Day of Play has almost ceased to exist. We have to wonder, if parents are continuing to bubble wrap their children, it raises the question, are they, or are they not, being too overprotective of their children? According to Chris Mercogliano with the Alternate Education Resource Organization, schools are asking parents to be brave, to have faith that their children are basically good people, and to let their children have freedom to grow in their own unique ways, and to trust them to make their own decisions. It states that, more specifically, helicopter parents need to let their children be their own person, make their own mistakes, and reap their own consequences. While these parents feel obligated that they need to supply with their children with anything their hearts desires, it's not the case. The more you give in to your child, the more they act spoiled. Thus causes issues down the line for children. In the 70s, parents allowed their children to flourish without constraints and without living in a fearful world. These parents allowed their children to gain responsibility, fight their own battles, and be who they needed to be and learn what they needed to do. Therefore, the world that these parents are living in, the what if, the protect your child at all costs, needs to come to an end. Because kids will get hurt, and that's the fact. It always will be. Whether physically or mentally, children will face pain, and helicopter parents need to realize that. No matter how much you protect your child, there's things in these worlds that you cannot protect them from. While parents in the 1970s seem as though they let their children run wild and almost did not care for them, it's a facade. It's also false to say that parents now love their kids too much and do not let them flourish in the way they need to. While losing control on your child may be frightening, a little loosening on the reins might be necessary to let these kids live a life that they need to. They're the backbone of our society and the glue that holds us all together. In the 1970s, it wasn't that parents did not love their children. There was just a different stigma around them. And it's not like parents don't love their child now or that they love them too much. There's just different stigmas in the world. There are major differences between how the children were viewed 50 years ago compared to now. And they're neither there for the better or for the worse because there is a good and bad side to each difference. But the paradigm shift is that children and everything around them has shifted, and there's truly no way of changing back, but only continuing forward.